We will be stepping out of the regular meeting to go into a work session. We'll reconvene then in our regular session around 6:30. I will be requesting realignment of the agenda to consider a possible executive session for items number 6 and 9, which may occur prior to reconvening our regular session. So if we're behind schedule, that's because we're convening in executive session. So the time is 6:01, and so we'll now step into our work session and be back shortly after 6:30 or somewhere thereabouts.
Dallas.
Downtown?
No, like Northwest Highway and Tollway.
Hey, that's where I came from. Weird.
Unusual.
Yeah, but then I took I call it the tunnel.
Pretty good. That's it.
It was like that last night too.
Oh, interesting. That's probably
Right along, because downtown was a ghost town. I left at 5:15, I go, I'm gonna be.
What time's the game on?
The old air that some friend of hers had for sale.
Do you have a script?
And we didn't go.
Should be in your packet.
That would have been a loss of $600 for nothing.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And they're cheap tickets because the price goes up every game.
Yeah, for sure.
Ed, is this yours or mine?
No, it's not.
All right, you guys ready to go?
Nope.
We got a few seconds left. All right. So item 2 is our work session. We'll start with the roll call. Commissioners, if you'd respond when I call your name, please. I'm Chairman of the Commission, Edmund Haas. Vice Chair Glenn Portman.
Present.
Commission Member Sue Blankenship.
Present.
Kent Hefferman.
Present.
Ed Marr.
Present.
And I know we're going to have, Freddie's out tonight.
And Cindy.
And Cindy's out tonight, okay.
Wow.
All righty, so with that, I'll turn it over to Mary to introduce staff and then review the cases.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fire away.
Good evening. Mary from Boswell, Senior Planner. Got Matt Steer. We got over here. Cole Baker, Aaron Taker, Rachel, Code Enforcement, Desiree Woman, Code Compliance, Cammie, Mickey, Secretary, and Shelby. Also assisting.
Shelby
Bob.
Fletcher, yes.
And Bob Hager,
Shelby.
City Attorney.
What's this about Amanda?
Not Amanda.
Amanda's left is over. All right, so Rachel Rosenstern, okay. Okay. So we'll go through the items real quick. I guess you have the first one.
Yep, item number 5 is Spencer Estates. It is a residential replat, so we require a public hearing.
Very simple case. They're dividing an existing lot into 2. And they both have public road frontage and utilities, and it's a clean cut deal. Any questions on that?
Any objections to city staff? Okay.
Okay.
So that's what the crowd's out there for, is that case?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Just check.
Oh, well, I think. Go ahead, Mary.
So item number 6 is an STR. This is for the one at 776 Crestview Drive. So this particular STR, we have had complaints on this one, both from police, code enforcement, and for the hot taxes. So staff did go to the house, I went through it, and found additional code violations. And so we just did send them a letter earlier today about that. So just to kind of go through it real quick, it was sold in 2017, 2019, they started an STR, it was inspected at that time. Over COVID, we didn't inspect anything. With the change in the ordinance, we're looking at, they're coming through to, you know, go through the process like everybody else. And so, some of the police calls we've had is noise disturbance, slashing tires, arguments, nuisance. Let me go back through here. All kinds of things. I'll go through my presentation. We found listings of the STR on Airbnb. You know, our conversation with them was they wanted to rent 2 rooms. Listings as early as earlier this week showed 3 bedrooms upstairs, bedrooms downstairs, bedrooms that our officers did not inspect. They were only allowed to go into 2 rooms. They weren't allowed to go through the rest of the house, so we didn't do a full inspection of the house.
So for each of these requests, does code compliance or building inspections or whoever go out and inspect?
So at some point in the process, they have to go through and inspect it, right? Because they have to meet certain requirements. Do you have smoke detectors? Do you have a fire extinguisher?
Okay,
Et cetera, et cetera.
got it, okay.
So, so they went through that. They found the rooms had either no smoke detector, or it was broken, or they had them kind of jerry-rigged on the door, or plugged in and stuck on the wall. We're calling carbon monoxide detector a smoke detector. I'll show you a bunch of pictures that we have. We also found an illegal, appears to be an illegal addition onto the house. So yeah, so staff's recommendation for this one is to deny this request.
And they could simply apply, once they get all these things addressed, they could reapply.
They could.
If there were no code violations in the house after the inspection, would staff still recommend approval or denial?
With this, at this house, we've had a lot of complaints, a lot of police
I'm asking.
complaints and callings. So we would not recommend approval at this address, just
So even
based
if they
on,
address everything, they,
based on past indicators. we would not.
What about notices? Did we get anything back from surrounding properties?
Yeah, we got about five notices back, all in opposition, and then 2 additional phone calls just asking kind of what was going on.
Is there any ramification for the code compliance issues with the addition? Because that was seen.
Right, so we're going to be tackling that next through other staff.
Okay.
So what would it take for this applicant to get this STR in order after the code issues are addressed? Good behavior over a certain amount of time, or, I mean, we're recommending denial of this, but
Right.
how can they get back in good graces so they can apply?
what would be their route forward if they wanted to still pursue it?
I mean, is it,
I think this is too early to say because I think
Okay.
we need to see what the rest of that house is like. And you'll hear additional information.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Mary, isn't the denial of staff to look at the house a per se declining?
Staff is only recommending.
And ultimately, this is your responsibility. This is a use issue. It's a single-family residence. So if this use is compatible, now you've had 2 others that you've looked at. So what you have to ask yourself is the use as it is being operated, one, we have a history, and what's there, is that a compatible use of that facility in that neighborhood? And without talking out of school, we've had some serious issues with the neighbors about the use of that house as a party house. So one of the things we look at is that behavior stop. Now, Airbnb, whom they list it with, will no longer sponsor places that have party houses. And so the house itself has been rented, but this application is only for 2 rooms.
Right.
Got it, okay.
So what Mary is telling you is there appears to be more rooms that are set up than what they've requested.
That's what I heard.
And then ultimately, there may be a credibility issue with the applicant.
Fair enough.
And then item number 7 is the live work Lost Creek. So you saw this maybe once or twice before. It's the 5 units. This is a minor modification. Essentially, each of those 5 units had kind of like a little cutout for a doorway.
Yeah.
What they found is that they'd rather have a flat wall and maybe a doorway, and that it gives them more usable space inside. So that's one of the changes they're requesting. Second is that on buildings A, C, and E, they have a 2nd-story balcony. So to extend the roof line to cover the balcony, pretty easy thing. The other item that they're looking at is, right now it's approved for office type uses. They're requesting to be allowed to have retail uses as well. So the parking wouldn't change. What the change is that switching from, let's say, a 1,200 square foot ground floor office type use, allowing them to have 800 square feet of retail use, which would leave the parking numbers the same.
How will that be done in reality? You have 800 of retail, 400 of office. Who's gonna know?
No, it's 400 of living space.
Living space.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So instead of the 1,200 all office, you'd have just 800 retail, and the remainder of that space would be part of the living space. That's part of how the live work works. So that's really all there is for that one. We sent out
Would the first
notices.
condition have been just an administrative review if it wasn't for the others?
With this, we decided it was a bit of a change where we wanted to just bring it forward and not just kind of switch something out.
Yeah.
If it was one, maybe, but when they're asking for all of them,
Yeah.
we thought it was,
For
just
sure.
like, feel more comfortable bringing it forward.
Okay.
Yeah, right, and we did approve the first one administratively, and then they asked for more, so.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Were there any letters of opposition to that change?
Okay, so the next item is item 8, which is the Levitt Coppell Business Park. It's a 3-part request, so you've got a change to the comprehensive master plan, and you've got a concept plan, and then you've got a detailed plan. I'll go through those all with you out there, but basically what they're trying to do is, this was Freeway Special District that called for mid-rise office buildings and hotels and regional retail. They're wanting to change that to allow for an office warehouse component on the north end, and then keep the southern portion Freeway Special District and zoned highway commercial. So, are there any questions on that? They've got a...
Any staff objection?
Well, they've been pretty good in working with staff. Originally, they came in, they're like, we just want to change it all to all industrial. And we're like, well, we're trying to, somewhat follow this master plan. And so they put two-story office uses and office retail use in the front to kind of block the view from the large office warehouse in the back. And then they've included there what was a detention pond. They've made it into a retention pond with a nice fountain and a trail around it. So at least that will serve the nearby properties.
So what do they do with detention?
It's included in the retention, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's both.
Yeah.
Well, detain means we just slow it down, retain means
Means
it's
you hold
pond.
it.
Right.
With a narrator in it.
Right. Yeah, so it looks nice. Their renderings look really nice. And originally, we were under the impression that they could connect the driveway in from State Highway 121 to Vista Ridge Mall Drive, that they could have a driveway that would connect those two. But they proved through their grade changes and what they're having to do that it would deem this property unbuildable. So, or a lot of the property unbuildable if they had it in that amount. So, anyway, any other questions?
Is engineering good with the TIA
Yes,
and the site analysis,
for
the sight line?
yes, yeah, they've shown their calculations for that.
And the detention calculation?
The detention, that'll be with the detailed engineering review, but, yeah.
She's
And-
testing you.
In TxDOT, they provided a letter.
Yeah, they provided their correspondence with TxDOT showing that they're conceptually okay with the driveway location, and they're gonna have to submit for their driveway permits with TxDOT
Okay.
as part of their engineering review.
Really, what I'm going to leave to the applicant to defend is their position for the comp plan change, and so,
Okay.
And then we have item 9, which is Lake Breeze Coppell. This is also a 2-part request. So part 1 is a detailed site plan for a 4-story, 120-unit multifamily product on about 4.4 acres. The second part is associated with the future land use plan as well, to change it from mixed-use community center or single-family residential to urban residential neighborhood. So this is on South Beltline Road, just south of East Beltline Road, and it directly adjacent to the new DART line. So the DART line is literally about let's see here, I got
82 feet?
82 feet from the DART silver line to the north. It's a little bit odd shaped piece of property. It's got an Atmos gas easement to the south of it that's 100 foot wide that runs through part of it. So they are asking for several PD conditions. One is this is supposed to be a 55 plus age restricted development. So with that, they're asking for a PD condition to have reduced parking requirements. So typically for apartments, you have anywhere from 2 parking spots per unit and up. They're asking for 1 plus a half space for every 5 guest parking per every 5 units. So they're proposing 147 spaces, which is about 1.22 spaces per unit, which is really kind of in line with other products similar to this with age restrictions. Like I said, it's 4 stories tall. They're providing covered parking for about half the site. So we don't have anything with this type of use specifically. So we are doing a planned development. The closest thing is the MF2. So that's kind of like the base underlying zoning. And even with the MF2, they're proposing to go 4 stories tall, so that's another condition. Parking in the front yard. And then part of their balconies facing Sanders Loop would stretch into that front yard setback slightly. What's we got here? So you'll see the different building elevations. One thing that we did request or are planning to require if this is approved is construction materials to block the sound of the DART that's going to go through there. So DART essentially is doing, it's going to be in operation somewhere in late 2025, 26, And it'll be running every 60 minutes and every 30 minutes during peak times. So it's gonna be in operation from 6 AM to 9 PM, but it could be as early as 5 AM, as late as 11 PM. And where the DART line runs, and where the building is, it's roughly around the 3rd floor of this building, is where you can wave for people going by.
Is there any noise mitigation?
And so that's where we're asking for noise mitigation, both in the materials and to make sure that the noise isn't greater than 55 decibels on the interior of the building.
So with the new DART station from here, where would be the closest horn crossing? Is Moore the closest? Beltline is too far, but Moore, they blow the horn, they blow it at Mockingbird.
Are they blowing it at Mockingbird?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's
So they have
the
silence.
freight, probably dirt, I don't know that they would.
I don't know, but I
But
can
you're
find
only
out.
required really to do it where there's no gate.
Or there's no, yeah,
They wouldn't
or there's
have
no divided crossing.
they wouldn't blow a horn going
No,
over the
not in the
bridge.
overpass. That's why I was
Yeah.
just trying to think where the closest horn would be.
Yeah, because it's elevated there, and then once
Yeah.
it crosses belt
Then it
line,
comes back down.
it goes back down.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's more.
Would be the
Okay.
closest.
And
Should
then,
be.
my next question is has to do with the 55 plus.
Yeah,
So is that part of the PD, so that's
right,
a condition of the PD, or?
yeah.
Okay,
How do you enforce that?
yeah,
Well, it would be written into the conditions, and part of that is that they're supposed to, you know, the whole selling point, if you're trying to do a 55 plus, is that you're providing certain amenities to the people that are living there. You know, we went and walked a facility. You know, their average age was, I think, closer to 70 something. But they had stuff like, you know, a media room, a library, a theater, and all these kinds of things. So,
I like all
They-
of that.
all right, so.
A few more years
yeah,
and
but-
you can go.
But I guess the question is how do you enforce it? Do they have to come and show you every lease that, you know, the renter's over 55?
We'll do an inspection.
What, you go knock on doors? I would like to see the birth certificate, ma'am.
Yeah.
See the lease, see the lease.
Yeah, you have to put that in the lease. And it would, is
these
it
are all
a,
around the country. It's not-
I understand,
Yeah.
but how do we enforce it?
We do through code enforcement, we'd have to do inspections.
is it a requirement that both in the 2 bedrooms, that let's say, well, if there's 2 people, both people are above 55, or only the?
Don't worry
one-
though, we're at
only
each other
one
out
of
to
these?
answer your question.
So
That's probably true.
they may be better able to answer that, but my experience is that at least one person has to be that age.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
if you're married, at least one of you have to be,
Yes, that's
meet that
correct.
requirement.
got it.
We have, in some of my other cities, we have them.
Yeah,
They're pretty good about policing that, because there's usually financial incentive for them to do this.
Mhm.
So they will take care of it to the mortgage, or they get a preferred interest rate to provide this through
Mhm.
fair housing.
Right,
And so that, it's monitored from the mortgage
or HUD loans.
and the loan officer. So that'd be one thing that we'd be able to check.
What's the
if they obtain
comparable,
that financing.
you mentioned the comparable parking ratio that you've seen. What have you seen as the comparables, like compared to the 1.22?
right, so we looked at a few of them and they were right around between 1.22 to 1.25, 26 kind of thing. And then even other previous city that I worked in, we had the same type of deal where it was like, if you do this, you get the lower parking ratio, but you had to provide a certain type and certain number of amenities.
Yeah,
Is the thought process that they go down to one vehicle?
Yes.
If it's a married couple or they don't have visitors?
Well, they have visitor parking, right, so that's the 1 per 5 units, they're providing some type of visitor parking.
Mhm.
But typically, they go down to 1 vehicle.
Okay.
How do the
Is there a
staff?
prohibition
I'm sorry.
on conversion of this facility to apartments?
Right, well, it wouldn't make, right, because they'd have to buy additional property to add additional parking.
Okay.
Park on the
How did
council.
staff feel about the intensity of the use of this parcel?
It's definitely a higher density than even what the master plan talks about, because the master plan talks about like 22 units to the acre, and this is about 28. So it is rather dense.
What's the average size unit? I didn't.
There's one and
It's
two bedrooms.
700 square feet for one bedroom, and there's 72 proposed. And then the minimum 900 for a two bedroom, and there's 48 units proposed for that. Then they're showing, certain type of amenities on the ground floor. One of our things that we're gonna recommend is that they provide additional open space or lounge gathering areas on each floor instead of just on the ground floor. So that'll allow for people, don't necessarily have to go downstairs to interact with other people. So they're proposing some exterior amenities like a dog area, shade structure with barbecue, butterfly garden, fire pit, 2 sports game areas for stuff like bocce or cornhole. Indoors, they're proposing a clubhouse lounge area, a fitness room, a multi-purpose room for games and crafts, a mail package area, and a leasing welcome area. And that's all on the ground floor. So in terms of landscaping, they're meeting their landscaping. They have about 40% of the site is gonna be landscape, but a good chunk of that, probably 23%, is the Atmos easement. The other 17 is actually around the site itself.
Are they not allowed to put parking on that Atlas easement?
I believe they were told, and you can verify, that they won't let them do anything on the easement.
Big old easement.
So the second part of that request is for change the master plan, which calls for a mixed-use community center with a maximum density of 10 dwelling units per acre. The area was to be mixed use, consisting of both neighborhood and community, serving commercial, retail, office uses, or medium density, single family, with urban residential, commercial, close to transit. What we have is a request to go to urban residential neighborhood, which allows for a higher density, and it's supposed to serve the needs of residents seeking alternatives to lower medium density single family housing. But the idea was also that it would be majority owner occupied and not all rentals. So what you have out there is currently the property zone commercial. You have warehouses on the west. You've got Cypress Waters, which is Dallas, to the east. And you're gonna have the DART rail line going right through it in the front. And then you've got some automotive businesses directly adjacent to this property. And then you have a Chase Bank directly to the south of it. So we did send out some notices, and we got one response from the automotive directly adjacent that was in favor of it. So we did present a bunch of PD conditions, and we did add one additional condition that wasn't in your packet. When we looked at it a little bit more, it did not have any kind of fencing around the property, so we were looking at least some kind of decorative fence to kind of separate the rest of the commercial and the DART line from this site, to provide some security.
Did you want me to mention what the forward board?
Yeah, so
Is there-
Matt's gonna talk a little bit.
Okay, so we've got a future-oriented approach to residential development task force that was created out of the 2040 vision. And we've been looking at senior housing. They are in favor of this type of facility. They haven't vetted this specific one. They've taken a field trip to Watermere and Flower Mound and Frisco, and they were definitely in support of independent living, similar to those. We sent out a survey to the community. We had 925 responses related to, we called it active adult community living. And so 70% of the respondents were either very desirable. They stated that this type of facility would be very desirable or somewhat desirable. And the majority were neutral, or the rest were neutral. Only 6% said it was undesirable. So 6%, then neutral, then 70% either somewhat desirable or very desirable. So just wanted to give you that background because they are somewhat of a recommending body. They do make recommendations to City Council. So I wanted you to hear it before we bring this case to council.
I may ask you to share that with the public in our meeting.
This is public.
Oh,
Okay,
me,
out
not
there.
you.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other questions? Stuff for, let's see, what did we take to City Council? So Blackberry Farms was tabled. It's gonna go back to City Council this Tuesday. Kind of at the 11th hour, they brought forward 3 additional conditions. And so we had to table that item and go through that with them. And we're gonna be going back to council on Tuesday.
The council tabled it, or they didn't present to council?
We presented, and then they were in the middle of discussing motions and stuff, and they asked for 3 additional conditions that staff hadn't seen before. And so
Okay.
it allowed us an opportunity to go through and see what they were wanting to do and work through that.
That was, they didn't bring up the clubhouse. This
No.
was the first part, okay.
Yeah.
Clubhouse is staying, they just brought up, what happened is during Mr. Holmes's presentation, he said there's 3 additional things I'd like. And so there was some disagreement amongst council about how they felt about those.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to table it and bring it back, think about it some more.
Still, we'll stick the clubhouse will be separate anyway.
Correct.
After they meet with,
Correct.
Right, so if he wants to do anything in terms of an amenity center like before, he's gonna have to come back through
He's
the
gonna have
process.
to amend his PD.
Yeah.
Coming back
Yeah,
to
the other 2 cases were the Coppell Greens, you remember the pool setback, and then the text amendment regarding pool setback. So those were approved. Those were the easy cases.
okay.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Do I need to make the announcement out there?
Have you already made the announcement?
That said that the potential that we may be in executive session.
Go out there.
Okay.
and say-
I'm going to call for executive session specifically on items 6 and 9 with our city attorney present, so I'll make that announcement. Do we need a break before we executive session? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Coffee break.
I wanted to touch base. We are going to convene into executive session in about 5 minutes to review cases 6 and 9. After our executive session, then we'll reconvene back in a general session to review all the items on the agenda. So there's just some things that we need to work through. So it could be 15 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be longer, but we'll get back as quick as possible. And thank you very much for your patience. Okay. All right, the time is 7:10, and the Planning and Zoning Commission is now reconvening into regular session. All the members except Commissioner Guerra and Commissioner Bishop are present. Item 3 on the agenda is citizens' appearance. If there's anybody wishing to speak on any item not on the agenda, there was a sign-up sheet. I have the list here. Most people are signed up for items 6 and 9. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on any item other than what's on the agenda tonight? Okay, moving on. Shelby, do we receive any requests from remote regarding citizens' appearance? Okay, very good. Okay, moving on then. Item 4 is approval of the September 21st meeting minutes. Is there any discussion by the commission or a motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the September 21, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meetings be approved as written.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Portman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Blankenship. Shelby, would you call the roll, please? Or Cammie? Sorry.
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Maurer.
Aye.
And Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda is a public hearing. This is to consider approval of Spencer Estates Lots 1 and 2, Block A, a residential replat to divide an existing single-family lot into 2 single-family lots on 4.17 acres of land located at 724 DeForest Road at the request of Anthony Spencer and being represented by Michael Doggett of Kimley Horn and Associates. We have a staff presentation by Matt Steer.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. This is item number 5 this evening. It is a public hearing. It's in 2013, the minor plat for the lot for the existing residence was approved. The property was one of the last remaining undeveloped parcels along the forest. When the subdivisions were planned abutting to the east and to the west, it was anticipated that this property would have been developed for several single-family lots. To support a multi-lot development, Stonewick Lane was required to be stubbed out from both abutting subdivisions. However, given that only one residence was constructed, the extension of the road through the property was not required. The lot line is south of the stub out on the west side of the subdivision. Stonewick is proposed to serve as access for the existing residence on proposed lot 1R, and access will be obtained from the forest for lot 2. This plat includes a waiver to the alley requirement and depicts the existing utility easements that were previously dedicated, and then dedicates a new drainage easement for the floodplain area on the north end. A tree preservation plan is included, which shows the preservation of all trees on site. Because this is a residential replat, public notification to the original subdivision is required, and this included one notice to Anthony Spencer, and we haven't received a written response, but he is the applicant. Staff is recommending approval of Spencer Estate, Lot 1R and 2, Block A replat, subject to the following condition, that additional comments may be generated upon detailed engineering review. That concludes my presentation. It is a public hearing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good, Matt. Thank you very much. Any questions of staff by the commission? Sue?
I just have a quick question. You said only one notice was sent out. Typically, in a case like this, isn't the requirement a 200-foot buffer?
It's within the original subdivision, so it's one notice, because this is the original subdivision is one lot.
Right.
This
but
isn't a
don't-
zoning change, it's a residential replat.
Okay, thank you.
Any indication of the use of lot 2?
It's going to be a single-family residence.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, is the applicant here to present the case? If we could get your name and address for the record, please.
Michael Doggett with Kimley Horn, 260 East Davis Street in McKinney. and I'm here representing Anthony Spencer. And I don't have any additional information. Matt did a great job. I appreciate it. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions of the applicant by the commission? Okay, very good, thank you much. This is a public hearing. If there's anybody who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application, please step forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion by the commission? Motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that item 5, Spencer Estate, lots 1-2, Block A, residential replat, be approved as submitted, subject to the staff condition.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Portman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Blankenship. Cammie, would you call the roll?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Maurer.
Aye.
And Commissioner Haveman.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, item 6 on the agenda is a public hearing. This is to consider approval of S-1267-single-family-12, that being 776 Crestview Lane, an STR application. A zoning change request from single-family 12 to special use permit number 1267, single-family 12. To consider allowing a short-term rental on property located at 776 Crestview Lane, that being in North Lake Woodlands East, Block 12, Lot 6R, and Block F, at the request of Salma Shaikh and Shahid Aziz, the property owners. We have a staff presentation by Ms. Mary Prone Boswell. Mary?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. This is an item regarding a short-term rental. Again, on May 30th of this year, the City Council approved an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Article 30, defining and establishing the special use permit requirements for lodging houses, which includes short-term rentals. So all existing and future short-term rentals would be required to have a special use permit, in addition to registering with the city in order to legally operate in the city of Coppell. So what we're looking at here is a picture of the residence currently. Again, so we have about 10 SDRs that will need to go through, 10 existing SDRs that will need to go through the special use permit process, with this being our third. So we did one on K, one on Bradford, and this will be our third on Crestview Court. So the applicants own the house since about 2017 and has a homestead exemption on it. The home has been used for short-term rentals since 2019. According to the last real estate listing, this home has 5 bedrooms, and the applicant has indicated that they are proposing 2 bedrooms for rent with a maximum of 2 guests per room. So the owners have indicated that they reside here as well. The house is located on a cul-de-sac, has a 4-car garage according to the last real estate listing. The single-family home has an additional 2 to 3 spaces on the circular drive for guest vehicles to park. So guests would have access to the guest bedrooms, a private or shared bathroom adjacent to the bedroom, and can share the backyard patio and pool as well. So staff did visit this location a couple of days ago and found that access to 2 of the bedrooms were from the back side of the house with keypad access. So if you look at the top right picture on the screen, those 2 you can see the door on the far right, and then there's kind of a French door to just left of that. So those there's numbers on those doors indicating that they're rooms 2 and 3. Staff was not given access to the whole house as is required. They were only able to see the laundry room, a portion of the backyard, the 2 bedrooms, and their adjoining bathrooms, and a shared hallway bathroom. So this is the sketch that was provided, and once the inspection was done, the sketch does not adequately represent what is there and modifications that we believe have been done to the building. So these are photos provided by the applicant of the two rooms, both identified as room 1. Staff did see the room on the left-hand side, and it was identified as room 3 on the door. Room 2 that was shown to staff did not match what is represented in this photo. So again, this site is listed on Airbnb in a variety of ways. Staff found numerous listings over the last few weeks and have varied and have been taken down over the last few days. So the listing, this is one of the listings taken this month on this slide, indicates that there's 3 rooms for rent upstairs, while their request to us has been for 2 rooms downstairs. Staff has communicated with code compliance and the police department, and there have been about 16 calls to police for this address and 9 code compliance cases to date. Police incident reports vary from parking violations, slashed tires, making music videos, proposed nudity, heavy traffic in and out of the house, noise complaints, overhanging tree limbs, suspicious activity, criminal mischief, arguments amongst people living, staying at the house, various welfare checks, and renting out 7 rooms. Code compliance has had several cases for this address, ranging from high weeds and grass, building materials blocking the sidewalk, roosters and chickens, outside storage, several notices for delinquent hot taxes, and STR violations. Staff has confirmed with Finance Department that the applicant is up to date on paying their quarterly hot taxes and submitting them to the city, but paid for all quarters in August of this year after staff told him that they would be reviewed as part of his request. In my initial conversation with the applicant, he indicated that he had 3 houses but just sold 1 and has 1 in Irving that he runs an STR out of, as well as this one. So staff has reviewed the Airbnb website, has found several different posts for this site, ranging from 2 to 3 bedrooms for rent upstairs, but the sketch is for the downstairs area. Past reviews have stated that up to 7 rooms were being rented out and for several months at a time, which is in violation of the 30-day or less requirement for short-term rentals. This listing states, and this was just taken yesterday, that long-term stays over 28 days allowed, which does not comply with the STR ordinance for 30 days or less, and staff did not inspect the room shown on this listing. We also went through the reviews, and I just picked out a few. Basically, the top left, basically they indicated that I stayed at Shahid's for a couple of months. It was fairly clean, then it became junky with tables, chairs, tires, etc. It became an eyesore. The top right, indicating that there was too much mess inside. The bottom left, they were told to leave $20 on the nightstand after they had checked in. The bottom right indicated that he had rented room number 7, the economy room. I'm not sure how you rent out room 7 out of a 5-bedroom house. Then in the center, they indicated that there's a taller fridge in the common area upstairs for the 3 rooms. So when staff did approach to go look at the house, they were not allowed access through the front door. They had to go through a side access point by the pool and walk along the back, and were only able to access probably about a quarter of the house. Pictures of the home that our code compliance staff took from their limited visit are on the screen. So numbers on the doors, both on the inside hallway and from the door on the outside. So this was room 2. Smoke detectors that didn't work on the ceiling or simply were missing altogether. And the new detectors that were not properly installed or placed. You can see kind of one over by the side of the TV. And the bathrooms were taped off for people to not have access to certain places. One of the other areas that they were able to look at is the laundry room. Here you see a microwave with a toaster on top of it in the laundry room. The shared bathroom that has a restroom sign on it attached to the door. A mini water heater tank that is not properly installed on the top right. And then the bottom right, you have the sidewalk to the pool from the front, which is in disrepair. And then this was identified as bedroom 3, again, access from outside, where there's like a keypad lock. Doors taped off with signs, do not open. And then this one didn't have smoke detector in it, and they were trying to say that the carbon monoxide detector were smoke detectors. So staff noticed a building constructed at the rear of the house that did not seem to match the rest of the house. Staff did some additional research and were not able to find any building permits for the addition, which was done in the latter part of 2021. So this is the blue building that you're looking at on the screen. No permits, no inspections. Staff has no idea what the structure is being used for, and there are additional modifications to the house that have staff concerned, like the stairs outside adjacent to this structure. And here we have just a picture showing the one on the left for that area circled in red. Basically, there was nothing there. It was just grass and a little bit of patio area in 2021. And then later that year, and this is just a current picture, you see that there's that blue building constructed there. So the top left is the house prior to the STR, and the bottom right is the house now with the STR. So just some real decline in that property. So this is a zone change request. We did send out notices, 12 within 200 feet, additional 62 courtesy notices within 800 feet. We did receive 5 responses in opposition. So staff is recommending denial of the request. Should the commission choose to recommend approval of this request, staff would recommend the following conditions. A, that they obtain an STR permit prior to their current one expiring. B, that staff to notify staff of any property ownership changes. And C, to limit the rental to 2 rooms for less than 30 days. I just wanted to tack on that they should be receiving after this last inspection that they won't be able to do any type of rentals at this property until all the changes, like all the smoke detectors and so on, have been addressed. So
I'm sorry.
Sorry. That's the end of my presentation. I believe the applicant is here as well.
Okay. Does that include all the code compliance
Yes, sir.
requirements before they rent it again?
Yeah.
Okay. So item C, 1C, limit the rental to 2 rooms. How is that enforced? If there's some question as to the number of rooms being rented and or used.
And that's why we do inspections. And I believe on Airbnb, we can see kind of what's being rented, and
Yeah. Okay.
so there's a way to track that.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Any other questions of staff by the commission? Okay. Is the applicant here to present the case?
Yeah.
Hello, good evening. My name is Shahid Aziz, and I'm the owner of this property. Well, this is a kind of, I am a retired PepsiCo employee, and I know when we bought this house that it has quite a few rooms, so we decided that after retirement, when our hand is tight, we decided to make some little bit more income to share some of my mortgage. Because after retirement, we don't have enough resources. The only thing is either we had to sell the house or move somewhere else. But because some of my friend was doing it, so we also did it. And yeah, regarding some, ALME is a very good bridge between the ordinary folks come there and stay there. And of course, when there is quite a few customer there, someone has some problems, some issue could be is not a. Thing is we try to solve the problem on time to time, and as a whole, I think I have a more better reviews than not than the bad reviews. But anyhow, always we try to be avoid the problems and issue what we have facing. And I only thing is this is for the nobody want to share their home. Only the those people who cannot afford it is a very good resource A and B. I understand might be some codes are not met, but it's not a big thing. We can fix it. Like Mary said, smoke detector. I don't realize it that we had to put it on the ceiling, so I put it on the side of the wall, and it's not a big deal because we can later on we can put it on the ceiling. That's not a big matter. And as I was talking about sometime nowadays it's become hard to keep the people to keep in the service, and we have these guys come every time to cut the grass, but sometime in short, actually I just sent in a message to him. He said he's going to come tomorrow. So this kind of situation has become tough because of the manpower problem and all this issue, and we are trying to do our best. And she's saying 7 rooms. It was actually in the beginning when we started 2 years or 3 years before when we did. We don't have that time that much experience, and when we are not living it there. So, but we after that when we move in, so we fixed the problems and a couple of things, as we mentioned. Only 2 rooms we have. We want to do it, and we not do it for a full time. We do it, sometime is a part time. So when we see some hand tides and stuff like this, but as our planning, if some people, I don't know why have some my neighbors or somebody have, of course they have a right to do whatever they are. They can say that, but I wish if they can tell me, I can solve the problem right there before we come all to here. So anyhow, and as I see a couple of stuffs, I definitely work on it and I fix it, and you're welcome to look at it, and this thing is not a big deal. And we have other property I has to have, but and we don't have unfortunately, fortunately any problem there. But particularly in this area, for some reason, I don't know why we have this complaint. So, but we are trying to work, as I said. That's all I had to say, sir.
Sorry, very good. Any questions of the applicant by the commission? So just thinking about land use compatibility, things like that. See the police reports, code issues, just generally what's going on.
Well, code issue, a couple of things, as Mary said, the carbon monoxide is, I put it there, it was there, but I don't realize that we need to put on the ceiling. So, because I cannot climb on the ladder, so I was just put on there. This is just because of my age or whatever, you can say that. But I can find somebody to, help me out to put it there. That's why I say it is not a big deal, we can do it. And as they said that weed and grass, people working on it, and definitely tomorrow they will come and fix it. And even myself, I like to be, put the things nice, good. And unfortunately, we had some short-handed on the manpower, and we try our best, but, sometimes things not comes in our hand. I think because of age or whatever, you can say that, or my laziness or whatever it is you say. So, but I promise we will fix it and we will not have an issue.
Very good. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing, and we have Barbara Davidson signed up to speak. Barbara? And then if there's anybody after that, we'll entertain those after Ms. Davidson.
I'm Barbara Davidson of 790 Pelican Lane, and on the map that you showed, I was just over the top of it. I didn't realize that I could have just replied in opposition. I was one of the 62 recipients of the courtesy notice because I'm beyond the 200 feet, but within the 800 feet. I have known the families that lived on both sides of what the kids used to call the castle house. And you can see why. It looks like a castle. And it used to be a really pretty castle. But now when you go past it, it just looks uncared for. And I was very alarmed to see what was reported by the city staff about the safety of the indoor features. It just doesn't seem like a good thing to have in a single family zoned neighborhood. When we bought back in 92, you know, it was all single family homes, and I had no idea that we were going to have many hotels sometime in the future, but you never know your future. But I'm opposed to it continuing at least the way it is right now. And I've been by several times in the last few weeks, and the grass was really good looking in the pictures compared to what it really is when you go. He's right, you know, when your lawn people don't show up, things look pretty bad.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Or did you have any questions?
Have you, well, I might have a question since
Sure.
you're there. Have you, so there was a list by staff of police reports and complaints of noise and things like that. Have you experienced any of that?
No, I have not.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Okay. If we could get your name and address for the record.
Hi, Greg Franco, 549 East Sandy Lake Road. I'm not within the 200 feet or the 800 feet, but I walk by there weekly, if not several times a week, going from Sandy Lake area to Campion Trail and beyond, either with or without my dog. And I used to take that little extra detour down the street, and it was very nice. But in the last couple of years, it's just, I try to avoid it because you're walking through, there's always cars hanging out. I have to walk from the sidewalk out into the street, back onto the sidewalk, so it's a life safety issue. You look over to the garage, and it's just junk in there, or you can't get in there. It's just unkept, and I'm just opposed to it. It just depreciates everybody's home value in the neighborhood. So, short and simple, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on the item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion by the commission? Okay. Is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the item 6, which is S-1267-FS-12, 776 Crestview Lane, STR, close paren, a zoning change request from SF-12, single family -12, close paren, to S-1267-SF-12 be denied.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Portman. Is there a second?
I second it.
We have a second by, oh my gosh, sorry, Commissioner Heffernan. Excuse me, sorry about that. Okay, Cammie, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Haveman.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 7 on the agenda is consider approval of PD-213R7-H, a live-work facility located at Lost Creek Addition, lots 1 through 5 and 6X. Block A, a zoning change request from Plan Development number 213, revision number 6, historic, to Plan Development 213 Revision Number 7, Historic, to revise the detailed site plan for 5 two-story live-work buildings by enclosing the outdoor above area, allowing up to 800 square feet of retail use for each building, and allowing the west porches for buildings A, C, and E to have covered gabled roof, and 0.71 acres of property located on the northeast corner of South Coppell Road at Heath Lane at the request of Chris Collins and being represented by Greg Frank of GPF Architects. We have a staff presentation by Ms. Mary Pearl Boswell. Mary?
Good evening, Commissioners. Item number 7. In 2021, Council approved a development to construct 5 speculative live-work units in 1 common area parking lot. The applicant is proposing to construct the 5 units, with 1 unit currently under construction. The applicant is requesting to make a couple of changes to the exterior of the building. One is the ability to enclose approximately 70 square feet alcove area on the south side of the buildings. 2, the ability to extend the roof line on buildings A, C, and E over the second floor balcony. And the third, the interior floor plan will be finalized with the retention of a buyer. So the enclosure of the alcove areas will be offset by extending the garage areas so that the air-conditioned space will remain the same. The other request is to allow an option of up to 800 square feet of retail service use on the first floor per building, where currently the PD allows for professional office uses and 1 medical office use. This change will not require any changes to the amount of parking required, since the retail is about 1,200 square feet versus the office is 1,200 square feet versus an 800 square foot retail, so the parking won't change. The HOA documents will need to be amended to reflect the maximum allowable square footage for retail per unit. So there are about 33 parking spaces proposed, so nothing is changing in terms of the parking. So the yellow delineates where the alcove area was originally proposed, and they're just going to kind of square that off. And so we've had them update all of the elevations. So again, the yellow represents the original recessed entrance. And this is potentially where they could add a door to the outside. We've got on the bottom there. And then the pink represents the roof extension over the second floor balcony if desired. And so this is just essentially all of the elevations being updated to show what was originally approved versus what they are requesting today. Again, this is a zone change request. We did send out notices, 33 within 200 feet, additional 98 courtesy notices within 800 feet. We received no responses. So staff is recommending approval of this request, subject to the following PD conditions. 1, there may be additional comments during the building permit and detailed engineering review. And 2, that they submit draft HOA documents for the city attorney to review prior to new building permits. That is the end of my presentation, and I believe Mr. Frank is here representing and Chris, representing the owner.
Okay, very good. Any questions of staff by the commission? Okay, and then is the applicant here to present the case? Forget your name and address for the record.
Chris Collins. I live at 217 Glenwood, Coppell, Texas. And so the reason for this, after the struggle we went through to get it approved, is we started trying to define designs that would meet the end user's final desires. We found out that the alcove ended up being a hindrance. Didn't realize it was something that had to come back through the process to change. Would still like the ability to add a door on the final finish out drawings of the shell. We realized we had 2 applicants that were interested in a retail type business. One of them was called Blue Jug Water. They basically sell an ionized water in a blue jug. but it would be classified as retail. And so because of that, we decided to look at the parking. These smaller retail businesses would only need 600 to 800 square feet. According to the city ordinance on live work, the half of the first floor has to be used for the business use, which would be 600 square foot in this case. And when we did the parking analysis, we realized we could go up to 800 square feet and still park the same number of cars. So we're excited to finally be going vertical. The economy has not been our friend lately, so we now have 3 out of the 5 under contract to move forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. And you're in agreement with staff conditions, I presume?
Yeah, I enjoyed working with Bob so much last time on the HOA docs. I decided that'd be an easy. I'd love to get back and do that again.
Okay. He's so excited he left. Okay.
Yeah, he saw me.
Any questions of the applicant by the commission? Okay. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion by the commission? Is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that PD-213R7-H Live Work Lost Creek Addition Lots 1-5 be approved as resubmitted, subject to the staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Portman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Marr. Cammie, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nice. I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hafeman.
Aye.
All approved, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 8 this evening is a public hearing to consider approval of PD-312HC, the Lovett Coppell Business Park, a zoning change request from Highway Commercial to Plan Development Number 312 Highway Commercial to allow the conceptual plan for a 14,100 square foot 2-story office building and an 18,200 square foot 2-story office/retail building, and a detailed plan for a retention pond and a 257,600 square foot office/warehouse building on approximately 17.7 acres of property located at the northeast corner of State Highway 121 and Business 121, and the amendment to the 2030 Comprehensive Master Plan from freeway commercial to industrial on 13.2 acres of property, of 13.2 acres, that being the office warehouse portion, at the request of Lovett Industrial and being represented by Dan Gallagher of Kimley Horn and Associates. The staff presentation by Matt Steer. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. This is item number 8. It is a 3-part request. Part 1 is to establish a conceptual plan development for 2 office retail lots, an office warehouse use, and a retention pond on 17.7 acres of property. Part 2 is a detailed plan development for a 257,600 square foot office warehouse building and a retention pond on 14.7 acres of that property. The third part is also associated with the office warehouse component, which requires a change to the future land use map from freeway special district to industrial special district for Lot 1, not including the retention pond. So this is part 1. It's to establish a conceptual plan development for 2 office retail lots, an office warehouse use, and a retention pond on the 17.7 acres of property. The purpose of the concept plan is to establish preliminary layout of uses and circulation patterns to support the different phases of development. The office warehouse is proposed for the first phase to be constructed on the northern portion of the site, adjacent to the light industrial vacant property to the north, which is partially located in Louisville. To the east is a concrete batch plant and vacant land, and to the west is vacant land. The proposal includes enhanced landscaping throughout the property, including a walking trail around the central retention pond with an artistic fountain within the pond serving as a focal feature for the project, and that's to be located on the south along the frontage of State Highway 121. Lots 2 and 3 are planned for 2-story office and office retail buildings that will bookend the retention pond for Lot 1. No tenants are currently proposed for the 2 lots, and the layouts are expected to change based on the user. A detail plan will be required to come back through the zoning process for each of these lots if there are significant changes from what is shown. If not, then detail plans may be processed administratively. There are 3 drives serving as access to and from the property, 2 of which access the State Highway 121 frontage road, with 1 with access to Business 121. Each access point has a drive aisle leading to and from the office warehouse site. A traffic impact analysis has been submitted for this property and was attached to your packet. This provided analysis of 3 proposed drives and does not warrant a decel lane be constructed at any of them. The trip generation is a lower intensity than if the property were to be developed at full retail. Half of the inbound truck traffic will be at the easternmost entrance from State Highway 121 frontage, and the other half of the truck traffic will be from Business 121. And all trucks exiting the site are expected to leave from the Business 121 driveway. The landscape plans show that lots 1 through 3 meet the minimum area requirements. Lots 2 and 3 meet the tree planting requirements. The office warehouse site, or Lot 1, contains a retaining wall along the east and north perimeter. And the required perimeter trees, which is 1 per 50 feet, have been relocated from this area to provide trees where they would have more impact on the aesthetics of the site and won't impact the retaining walls. The perimeter trees are depicted in purple. The required interior or parking lot trees are shown in green, and the non-vehicular trees are shown in brown. The overstory trees have been upgraded to 4-inch caliper, where only 3-inch caliper is required, and this would contribute to their landscape credit, which I'll get into. The conceptual office and retail buildings contain the same material as the office warehouse, except for much less tilt wall. They will primarily be constructed of darker gray 8-inch by 24-inch smooth stone, which is a limestone, gray texture coated concrete, metal panel, and storefront aluminum. The glazing will be a transparent bluish color, and all signage will be required to meet the sign section of the zoning ordinance. Here's a rendering that gives you the scale and general look of the project, although the conceptual buildings are a little bit different than what's shown in the elevations. But the top one is facing northwest, and you can see the frontage road and then their project, and then the next one is facing southeast. That's back towards the other direction. Part 2 is a detailed plan development for a 257,600 square foot office warehouse building and a retention pond on 14.7 acres. The office warehouse proposed is to be located on the northern portion of the entire site and would be the first phase of development. It's proposed to be constructed on 14.7 acres along the retention pond area. This is adjacent to a vacant attractive land to the north that's currently zoned for light industrial uses. Dock doors will be located on the northern portion of the building, and a 16-foot screening wall will be constructed on the west end of the truck court area. This is a speculative building and could be used for 1 or multiple tenants. The south side of the building has car parking spaces adjacent to it, and the north will have truck parking. The applicant's requesting an exception to the parking requirement for warehouse to be one parking space for each employee on the maximum working shift, plus space to accommodate all other trucks and vehicles used in connection therewith, but not less than one parking space per 2,000 square feet of floor area. The standard warehouse parking ratio listed in the zoning ordinance is one parking space per 1,000 square feet. So if this exception is granted at one parking space per 2,000 square feet, and given that 5% of the proposed building will be devoted to office use, which is calculated at one parking space per 300 square feet, then 146 parking spaces will be required. And their proposal is showing 175 parking spaces. Included in this detail plan is a conceptual request for a multi-tenant monument sign. The sign will be further defined through the permitting process and shall be compliant with the sign section of the zoning ordinance. This is intended to be shared amongst the tenants for each of the lots, and additional monuments may be allowed on the other lots. This is just a purely conceptual rendering here. The building is approximately 50 feet in height. It will be made of concrete tilt wall with form liner and reveals. This will consist of three main colors, which is beige, darker beige, and a light gray, all neutral in color. Clear story windows and reveals will be added between each of the entries to add interest to the long expanse of the wall. The entries will have 8-inch by 24-inch smooth stone. That's the same limestone as on the conceptual elevations. Light gray in color, and an aluminum and glass storefront with metal panels surrounding the entries. Building signage will also need to comply with the sign requirements of the zoning ordinance. Here's a rendering of their enhanced entry. Okay. So in terms of tree mitigation, the applicant is clear cutting the entire site. They put together 3 different tree mitigation plans for reference, each with differing exemptions. So the first one is they're removing 7,522 caliper inches with no exemptions, and that totals $1,512,050 in tree mitigation fees, and that's after their landscape credit has been applied. Their second alternative shows the building footprints being exempted from tree mitigation. So they would be required to mitigate 5,418 caliper inches, and that would total $1,096,920 in mitigation fees. The third option, the building footprints, fire lanes, public easements, and retention areas are exempted from the mitigation. So that gets them down to 2,532 caliper inches being removed outside of those areas. And their total mitigation fee is close to $465,650, and that's after the landscape credit's been applied. So the applicant is requesting that the last of their tree mitigation plans be used and the last exemption requirements be used. This would exempt all building footprints, fire lanes, public easements, and retention areas from tree mitigation, and will be listed as a PD condition. This will be City Council's purview and not something that the Planning and Zoning Commission will have to act on because it involves a dollar variance. Within this application doesn't include a comprehensive list of PD conditions to address the development of this site. There are additional conditions which I'll go through in the recommendation slide, but I'll just go through these here. They list a distribution center as an allowable use within the HC, within their zoning, and with the HC-based zoning. Exterior construction would allow for tilt wall construction. HC does not allow for tilt wall. The parking, again, they're requesting the variance, 1 per employee on the peak shift or 1 per 2,000 square feet, whichever is greater. And then screening of roof-mounted equipment. They're requesting that be given an exception to the adjacent properties. They are requesting that it be, let me see here. It says roof-mounted mechanical and utility equipment must only be screened from the frontage right-of-way and any adjacent residential uses. I think because they're so low, it's really hard for them to screen their roof-mounted equipment. The next one is tree mitigation. I've been through that in great detail. And then the final one, there's a glare and lighting variance requested. It says that all hours of the night they would be permitted to have their site illuminated, but they would have 0-foot candles at all of their property lines. And then they defined distribution center. And that's a rather lengthy definition, which I just went through. I spoke with Bob about it, and I believe that there's one condition or one component of that definition that we're going to have to strike, which is allowing cell antennas on the roof, because we typically would require a special use permit for a cell antenna. So I will add that to our conditions, or our recommendation here. Okay, so the third part of the request is also associated with the office warehouse component, which requires a change to the future land use map from freeway special district to industrial special district for Lot 1, not including the retention pond. So this property was part of a city-initiated effort 20 years ago to establish highway commercial zoning along the freeway frontages to enhance development standards, ensuring that the limited freeway frontage and entry portals into the city of Coppell were of the high-quality developments envisioned. The 2030 master plan, adopted in 2011, echoed that intent by designating this area as Freeway Special District. The request before you will leave 4.5 acres fronting on State Highway 121, Freeway Special District, and the 13.2 acres located on the north to Industrial Special District. The proposed request will provide a 257,600 square foot office warehouse building adjacent to another property to the north with industrial zoning. The access to and from the site is challenging because of a one-way highway frontage. The applicant has demonstrated that it's virtually impossible to construct a drive that connects this property from State Highway 121 to Vista Ridge Boulevard to the north to improve the situation because of significant grade change. For these reasons, and because the applicant has provided enhancements to the building in the form of building height, entry enhancements, glazing, articulations, staff is not opposed to the land use designation for this 13.2 acre portion be amended back to Industrial Special District. We sent out 7 notices within 200 feet, 93 courtesy notices within 800 feet. We received no response in favor or opposition. Staff is recommending approval subject to the following conditions. 1, additional comments may be generated upon detailed engineering review. 2, on the landscape plan for Lot 1, rectify discrepancies between trees shown within the chart totals to what is listed as required/provided and what is listed in the plant schedule. 3, include the wing wall height as 16 feet or greater on the site plan and depict on the elevations for Lot 1. And 4, the proposed PD conditions exhibit be modified to include the following A through D. Is greater than 50% of the required parking be allowed in the front yard for the 2 commercial properties as shown. The proposed materials and colors will remain consistent throughout the PD as noted on the conceptual elevations. Multi-tenant monument signs shall be allowed to display tenant names throughout the entire conceptual development, regardless of which lot they are located. D, the perimeter trees for Lot 1 shall be allowed to be shown on the detailed landscape plan for Lot 1 due to the retaining wall on the north and east perimeters. And 5, ensure the chart on the concept and detailed site plans correctly reflect the proposed PD conditions exhibit as modified And then I'm going to add number 6, which is to eliminate cell antennas from roof-mounted equipment from the distribution center definition. And that concludes my presentation. The applicant is in the audience. They do have a short presentation as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Quick question for you regarding the exemptions on the tree mitigation. So you presented 3 scenarios.
Right. So I had asked them to submit the 3 different cases because they had initially come in with the third, and I just wanted to see the dollar amount difference between the 3 different cases.
It's a lot of trees.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of staff? Okay. Oops, sorry, Ed?
Yes, Matt, in terms of I was trying to follow the math, in terms of the parking ratio, what's the delta if it's 1 per 1,000 as well as the 5% being office? Because the 175 and 146 is if the 1 to 2,000 is granted, correct?
Yes, that's 1 per 2,000.
We could answer that.
Dan Gallagher is in the audience. They can answer that.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, would the applicant like to present the case then?
Colby Everett, 127 Howell Street, Dallas, Texas. Thank you all for hearing the presentation tonight. Are you going to flip the slides? Sure. Okay, great. We'll try to go through this pretty efficiently and not be too long-winded here. But Lovett, as an overall company, Lovett Industrial is a vertical within Lovett Companies. We're based in Houston, and we have a history of developing all across asset classes, commercial, residential, industrial, et cetera. And we're very active. We've got about 8 million square feet under construction nationally right now, and we're focusing on key locations like this one. This is a snapshot of what we're doing in DFW. And here's a couple examples of similar projects that we're doing in different markets and within Texas. We threw up a couple renderings previously. You guys have seen these, but we've spent a lot of time focusing on the aesthetics of the facility here. Our Architect Alliance Architects has really invested in what the end product is going to be here, and this has a lot of glazing for one thing, significantly more glazing than what we would typically put forth in other locations, and also relative to kind of the surrounding comparable product. And so we're excited about the way it turned out. A couple things we just wanted to point out. We spent a little time on jobs. What exactly is this going to look like? Who's going to end up potentially occupying space here? We are presenting this on a speculative basis, so we don't know who the end user is going to be, but we can get a pretty good sense for what those jobs might look like based on surrounding users. Obviously, a lot of brand name corporate tenants and in the area, North Airport and in Coppell specifically, and we think you're going to likely see more of the same here. And then wanted to hit on taxes briefly as well. Just obviously this is conceptual, but what that might look like from a real estate tax perspective, not taking into account any sales tax or tax on inventory, but based on the site plan proposed, that might look like plus or minus $500,000 annually upon completion for the logistics facility, and a little over $100,000 a year annually on the commercial, and it's kind of broken out here for the various subcategories of the beneficiaries of those taxes. This is just some backup. So in summary, it's difficult out there. I'm sure you guys are reading the same headlines as us. It's difficult to be a developer, and with where interest rates are and for a myriad of other reasons. And so we're exclusively spending our time on the sites that we feel the most strongly about. And that's places where we really want to do business. And it's places like Coppell. And we engaged with Matt and his team many months ago and have spent a lot of time and a lot of money. And we think that we've put forth something that the city can be really proud of. And as I noted, we have experience doing development across asset classes, and we've talked to numerous market participants about all the various uses. What does it look like to do retail? What does it look like to do office? What does it look like to do a logistics facility? And we think that the site plan that we've presented optimizes those uses. We think there is a significant amount of tenant demand for what's presented here, and we think that it's going to be mutually beneficial for us and you guys. And we've got a lot of team members here, and we have our civil engineer here, and then members of my team, and so we're happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. Totally agree. This has been a difficult site to work with. I've seen it over the years. I do have a couple of questions. I asked staff at the pre-session if they were comfortable with the TIA. They had indicated they were. I would like some backup on the 50-50 split of truck traffic along the frontage road. I want to understand that a little better. But I think one of the more pressing questions for me is the basis for the exemption regarding the tree mitigation. You're gonna wipe the whole thing out, and you're asking for an exemption for only a certain piece of it. Why?
It's just relative.
Well, why should you not pay the full mitigation?
It's to be clear, it's just consistent with what we've seen in other municipalities, and that's really the basis for it. And so we're kind of presenting that as the ask, and we're open to having a conversation about it.
Okay. Well, I for one, I could not be in favor of allowing it. I appreciate you asking. You always ask, but I could not personally allow that you mitigate an exemption for the other portions of the site. To me, it's just got to be mitigated. That's just my personal opinion on that piece. The parking, I guess Dan was going to have the parking, the number crunch on the two scenarios. Okay.
Sure.
And I presume that the basis for that request is just your experience, but I haven't seen a request with regards to dealing with the peak shift only. I guess you're just trying to make it.
Jake is the traffic engineer. We'll kind of tag team a little bit.
Okay, sure.
I did have maybe one question for you, Matt, on the tree mitigation, because I can't recall in LI, is the base LI zoning, does that not exempt the building footprint?
That is correct, yes. So if they were to be zoned light industrial or ask for a light industrial, then the building footprints would be exempt from tree mitigation.
Okay, so that's bullet points 1 and 1.
That would be the second option.
That would be the second option,
okay.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
But they are not requesting the base zoning be changed. They're just requesting the exemption.
Okay.
It's at least a reference for
Sure.
other similar properties.
Gotcha.
Specific to the parking question, we, the way it's currently presented, only 145 spaces are required. We are exceeding that at 175. If it were 1 per 1,000, it would jump up to around 270 spaces, which that would be overparked in our opinion based off what we've seen for these types of users. Any questions on that?
I'd like to understand the peak. You're asking for a peak shift at this rate. What kind of use are you anticipating?
Well, it's, again, being it's speculative, we don't know who the actual tenant would be, but it's common that there's different shift
Sure.
operations.
Sure.
So, you asking what the peak traffic would be?
Yeah, I mean, okay, you're basing the 1 per 2,000 on a peak shift. But
I
you
think
don't know
the
what
way it's worded is 1 per 2,000 or the peak shift employees, whichever is greater.
Yes.
Okay,
So the 30 extra spaces we have built in could potentially provide for that buffer if the peak shift is greater than the 1 per 2,000.
okay, okay. And so what if there is a use that then puts it over the limit? What would be the mitigation?
You know, we clearly don't have the space for parking. I've seen truck courts can be striped off. That's common of some users. Quite frankly, we would not anticipate a tenant that required such a demand for parking. If they did, we would likely have to stripe off some of the truck court.
Okay. And then on the TIA, or at least I heard mention of in the staff report, the 50-50 truck split on the, how are we going to do that? How is that going to be? That's just an assumption, right? 50% of the truck traffic is going to use driveway 1, 50% is driveway 2
Yes,
on
sir.
the one-way frontage road.
Yes.
To me, that seems like, okay, we're going to distribute this traffic so we get out of doing a decel lane. Help me understand that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Jake Halter, Kimley Horn, in case you need my name and affiliation. So yeah, essentially we have 77 vehicles coming in our max peak hour. And so that would put us, if every single person took the same driveway, that would put us slightly over, the text dot threshold of 60. And so when we're looking at the site, we're seeing how close that northwest driveway is to the truck court, and how it's just kind of a straight shot. We're looking at, people coming from 121 on the southwest, are probably going to come straight up and just try and hit right into that first driveway, rather than exiting, going to Denton Tap, taking the U-turn, kind of coming to the site that way. They're obviously both, decent options coming to the site. That was essentially what we were looking at.
Okay. I mean, if TxDOT's obviously somewhat satisfied, I'm gonna go with that. But I would like for our traffic engineering staff to be fully comfortable with all that.
Sure. The only other thing I might add is it is possible they could demise the building and have 2 separate tenants. And a lot of times when that happens, there's fencing with fire access Knox box. And so in that
Gotcha.
scenario, it could physically require
Okay.
one tenant use one driveway and the other use the other.
Okay. I'm asking a few questions here, but I recognize this site has been very difficult to work with. And I really do appreciate this, what you all have done here. To me, this seems like a win. Just a few operational type questions I have in my mind on
Appreciate
this
that.
thing.
Yep.
Question to the applicant, Ed?
Yeah, one more question. So if you add the 50-50 together, what's the total?
I believe 77. Let me look at the table. Let's see. So if you're looking at the TIA, it's going to be table 1. Our AM peak hour, so morning rush hour, would be 77 vehicles coming into the site, and our afternoon would be 68.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of the applicant? Sue?
Yes, I have another parking question, I guess. So, in a slide that we saw a little bit earlier in the presentation, there was 170 employees. You guys are proposing 175 spaces. That allows for 5 visitors.
They're not all, that 170 is throughout the day. So the different shifts is how that would be accommodated.
Typically, how many shifts are there?
I don't know, 2 or 3. I don't know if you, really depends. I mean, at least 2.
So it's a 24-hour
Yeah.
facility?
It could be, yes. So I would say, if there's at least 2 shifts, I would think an 8-hour shift is probably more common. So if there were a night shift, then it could be 2 larger shifts with a smaller shift potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Ken.
Would you be grading the entire site in order to build the warehouse?
Yeah, the entire site, there's significant topography, about 60 feet of fall. So we will have to grade the entire site at once, kind of grade out the office pads so they're more or less level for development, and it would all be mass graded at once.
And would you anticipate building out then the retention pond at the
Yes.
same time that you do the
That is
warehouse?
required. We'll have to do that, not only for the aesthetic features, but also for detention.
Dan, can you explain the retaining wall along the east and the
Sure.
north, like how
So
high it will be?
Sure, the highest point of the site is at the northeast corner. I'll just, for reference, say it's at elevation 160. And along 121, that's around 100. So you've got that 60 feet of fall. And the building wants to sit in between the two. So that's at 130. And if you look at the paving on the north side of the building, that actually sits lower than the building. So that's below that elevation 130. Whereas that corner right at the top is 35 feet higher. And so that is the grading challenge that was explained and how we don't think it's feasible to connect our road with Vista Ridge to the north in Louisville. So there is a retaining wall that goes around that corner of the site. That is the largest wall. There's a few other smaller walls, just due to the nature of how much topography there is. But specific to that northeast corner, hopefully that makes sense. How tall is it?
Yeah, how tall would that retaining wall be?
Yeah, I mean, it's 20 feet at its highest at that corner.
Wow.
And our site is sitting low.
Any other questions of staff? I mean, the applicant?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. We have some folks that are signed up to speak on this. Maxwell, no, that's the next one, sorry. Anybody would like to speak for or against the proposed application? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'm fairly comfortable with the application as is, and I commented to staff earlier about the traffic. Just want to make sure they take a close look at it. I think it's probably going to work. I could see maybe some overlap issues but I feel like that there's some upsides to this overall. So I don't have any other comments on this one. So is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, I'll make a motion. Move to approve PD 312 Highway Commercial Lovett Coppell Business Park zoning change request from Highway Commercial to Planned Development Highway Commercial, subject to staff conditions, including the addition that Matt made earlier.
Regarding cell towers?
Correct.
Elimination of cell towers?
Cell antenna, yes.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Marr. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Heffernan. Cammie, would you call the roll, please?
Excuse me. Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Haveman.
Aye.
All approve, none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item 9 this evening is a public hearing. This is to consider approval of PD-313-MF-2 Lake Breeze Senior Living, Coppell Heights, lots 3 and 5 and 11 and 15. Zoning change request from commercial to planned development number 313 multifamily 2 to allow 120 unit 4-story age restricted, that being 55 years plus, senior living facility on approximately 4.4 acres of property located on the east side of South Beltline Road and the west side of Sanders Loop, approximately 660 feet south of East Beltline Road, at the request of Coppell Lake Breeze Limited, being represented by Maxwell Fisher of Zone Development. We have a staff presentation by Ms. Mary Peron Boswell. Mary?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is your last public hearing. So this is a two-part request. Part 1 is a detailed site plan for a 4-story, 120-unit multifamily product on approximately 4.4 acres. The second part is also associated with the multifamily request, which requires a change to the future land use map from mixed-use community center or single-family residential to urban residential neighborhood. So this is proposed to be a 4-story, 120-unit apartment complex, age restricted to persons age 55 and over. It's 50 feet in height. Property is somewhat L-shaped, and the building matches it with the site plan showing the L-shaped building being offset from South Beltline Road, approximately 158 feet, 25 feet from Sanders Loop to the east, and 82 feet from the Dart Silver Line rail to the north. So the building's in blue, fire lane's in red, the Atmos easement is in green, and then we've got some covered parking in the gray. So the southern portion of the property has an Atmos gas line easement that runs through it, and it's 100 feet at its widest point. The main entrance would be from South Beltline Road, although there is also a drive off of Sanders Loop. So there would be several PD conditions being requested, one of them being the amount of parking provided on site. So the typical multifamily apartment is required to provide 2 parking spaces per unit, plus a half space for guest parking per unit. So they are proposing 147 spaces, which calculates to 1 space per unit plus 1 space per 5 units for guest parking, totaling about 1.22 spaces per unit, which is consistent with other age-restricted properties that we did analyze. Another PD condition is the allowable number of stories and density for MF2, with 2 stories and 22 units per acre being the maximum allowed by ordinance, and 4 stories and 28 units per acre being requested, which is denser than other MF properties. Because of the property constraints, parking is being provided on the northern boundary of the site, or the northern portion of the site, with parking in the front yard being requested. They are providing parking for covered parking for half of the site, which does meet requirements. Another PD condition being requested is to allow for balconies to project 5 feet into the required front yard along Sanders Loop. So with the 25-foot setback, they'd be projecting 5 feet into that for their balconies. So these are the building elevations. Can you pass the board? Matt's going to pass down the material board. So this shows a variety of materials and colors proposed for the building. 2 brick color proposed, 1 light, an Acme steel gray, and 1 dark Acme ebony. In addition, there's cementitious board and batten, cementitious panels and siding, as well as cementitious wood tone siding. The roof will be a standing seam metal roof, and a metal balcony areas, metal for the balcony areas with a 33% open area. So the materials will also be used in different sections and articulations. The covered parking will also have a standing seam metal roof, and the pillars will have some brick accentuations. As noted in the previous section, the 3rd floor of the complex is proposed to be in line with the train tracks. There's approximately 82 feet separation from the building to the tracks. There were no signs submitted for this development, so any proposed signage will need to conform to city requirements. So here we have essentially a floor plan, with the one on the left being the 1st floor and the one on the right being floors 2 through 4. The room breakdown for this development is proposed to be 72 1-bedroom units with a minimum of 700 square feet, 48 2-bedroom units with a minimum 900 square feet, which will be accessed from an air-conditioned interior corridor. There are 2 elevators proposed. You can kind of see them, one closer to the front, one closer to the middle. Since there is no emergency generator proposed, all ADA rooms will be required to be on the ground floor. They are proposing granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. They are proposing a clubhouse lounge area, 2,200 square feet, a fitness room, 2,000 square feet, multi-purpose room for games and crafts, 1,100 square feet, a mail package area, 500 square feet, and a leasing welcome area, 1,200 square feet, all on the ground floor. And that's identified in the light purple on the left. Staff would request that they provide an additional 500 square feet area of open area lounge space on each floor for residents to gather. They also noted in their narrative a bistro bar, but it was not labeled on the floor plan, so I'm not sure where that would be. Exterior amenities that they're proposing include a dog area, shade structure with a barbecue grill, a butterfly garden, a fire pit, 2 sport game areas for games like bocce and cornhole. They also listed some concierge services during business hours. Not sure, staff would like those hours clarified. So we were talking about the DART, which is directly north of this property. So the following information was taken from the DART website. So DART expects weekday service for the Silver Line to be from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. However, it is possible that the service hours could be as early as 5 and as late as 11 p.m. The Silver Line will run every 60 minutes during peak hours, such as weekday commute times, would run every 30 minutes. This line is proposed to be in operation in late 2025 to mid-2026. So the train lines are under construction. The tracks are elevated in this particular section, measuring from the ground to the bottom beam of the track, which is identified in yellow. It's about 19 feet, and about another 7 feet of support, and an additional 3 feet to the handrail on the tracks. So everything in yellow is to the top of the handrail on the tracks. So this lines up with essentially the 3rd floor of the proposed complex. Staff would like to add a condition that if this building is constructed, then mitigation of the train noise and any potential vibration from the tracks be factored into construction. This would include the windows and all other construction material, and that noise should not be greater than 55 decibels on the interior of the building. So in terms of the landscape plans provided, they show that the site meets the minimum requirements, with approximately 40% of the site landscaped. The majority of this is in the Atmos gas easement, as you can see on the bottom in the darker green. And there's about 17% of the landscaping that is outside of the gas easement. So they're proposing 65 overstory trees like live oak, cedar elm, Chinese pistache, and Shumard red oak, and 20 accent trees of the crepe myrtle and Yopon holly variety. So as I said, there was 2 parts to this request. The second part relates to the 2030 master plan, which calls for this area to be mixed-use community center or single-family residential with a maximum density of 10 units per acre. This was to be mixed use containing both neighborhood and community serving commercial, retail, and office uses, or medium density single family, urban residential with commercial services and transit accessible within a short walking distance. This area is currently served by office warehouse buildings to the west, Cypress Waters to the east, a bank to the south, and a new DART Silver Line passenger rail abutting the northern boundary of this property. So part of the request is to amend the future land use plan for this site to urban residential neighborhood, which would allow for higher density residential uses that serve the needs of the residents seeking alternatives to low and medium density single family detached housing. The idea is to have a mix of housing with the majority being owner occupied and not all rentals. I'm going to let Matt tell you a little bit about the Ford Committee and a survey that we did.
All right, Commissioners, the Ford Task Force was created about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was to analyze the future-oriented approach to residential development. So that's what it stands for. We talked about senior housing, and it is apparent that this type of facility Ford is in favor of, but they haven't vetted this specific proposal. So the Ford committee took a field trip to the Watermere and Flower Mound in Frisco, and they were definitely in support of independent living when they came back from those field trips. We sent out a survey to the community to gauge the interest of the community in active adult community living, and we had 925 surveys completed, and 70% responded that it was either very desirable or somewhat desirable to have an active adult community. Other responses were neutral, and only 6% stated that it was undesirable. So if you'd like, I can talk a little bit about the field trip to Watermere. We went through the Watermere and were very impressed. You know, it was almost like you were walking into a hotel. It was well kept, very clean. They had interior corridors, heated indoor pool. They had a grand dining hall with a pizza oven. That was, you know, I would eat there every day. On-site salon and spa, and they actually leased this out to a tenant that came in there and operated the salon and spa. Fitness center, they had a cafe, a business center, they had a guest suite that actually would allow for family or friends to come and stay there and rent that out for a night. Activity center, sports lounge, they had courtyards for outdoor gatherings, and it was close by near, you know, restaurants and businesses. They had common spaces in interior and exterior, and then they had climate-controlled storage units and private garages, as well as parking spaces. So that sums up our tour. Is there anything you'd like to add?
They had a library, a media room, some nice outdoor, I guess, deck area, large spaces. And then each floor had additional gathering spaces for people to congregate if they didn't feel like going to any of the other spaces.
Yeah, the average age, they said, was in the late 70s, and it was, you know, it was advertised as 55 and over, but the average age was probably 78.
Yeah, and they had someone there to provide events, like an activity director. So they had things like every single day scheduled. So I think they also had a shuttle because they had, you know, the lower parking, but they also provided a shuttle to shuttle their residents to different places if need be.
You've completed the presentation?
No.
Okay. Wasn't sure, just checking.
So this is a public hearing, so we did mail out notices, 7 within 200 feet, additional 9 courtesy notices within 800 feet. We received 1 response from the adjacent property owner who's indicated that this would be a nice addition to the city and serve the citizens well. So staff is recommending that if this request is approved, that the following PD conditions be added. 1, that there may be additional comments during building permit and detailed engineering review. 2, that the installation of a southbound left turn deceleration lane on Beltline Road at the existing median opening serving the site. 3, that building elevations be approved as presented. However, the building must provide for noise attenuation, no greater than 55 decibels on the inside of the building, Site lighting shall meet the City of Coppell requirements to allow for 1 parking space per unit plus 1 per 5 guest parking. To allow for parking as shown on the plans, to allow for 4 stories and density of 28 units per acre, to allow for a 5-foot balcony projection into the front yard along Sanders Loop, to provide additional 500 square feet of lounge area on each upper floor, to amend the future land use plan to urban residential neighborhood, to clarify the hours for the concierge service. And then we did add one additional one that was not in your staff report. We got to looking at it, and to add a decorative fence with some stone brick columns every 40 feet, especially around the areas on the north where it abuts the commercial development. So that is the end of my presentation. The applicant is here as well, and I believe they have a presentation they'd like to give.
Mary, a couple of quick questions. Did the TIA call for the southbound decel or the turn lane?
Yes.
Okay. And then the fencing, was there no fencing prior to that, or what was the previous?
There's no fencing that was shown on the plans at all. So,
Okay.
With the Atmos easement to the south, that would provide enough buffer adjacent to the bank. But we feel that adjacent to the north side, especially where the Dart line, and then there's the other commercial developments, that a fence would be appropriate.
Okay. Any other questions of staff by the commission? Glenn?
Mary, does the plan, did I miss it? Is there food service on premises?
My understanding is that there is not a cafeteria. I think they have, they're saying some kind of bistro, but that meals would not be provided. And
Thank
I'll
you.
let them expand on that.
Okay. All right. Ken? Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Mary, I'm curious about this large easement to the south of the site. What's happening with that easement? I mean, is that going to be landscaped? Who maintains it? What would it look like?
Well, it would still be part of their property. It would just remain grass or in a natural state. They aren't allowed, I believe they aren't allowed to plant anything on it, or, that type of thing. So it really.
But they're required to maintain it, or who maintains it?
Because it's on their property, so they are required to maintain it.
Mm-hmm. So they couldn't put grass on there?
Right, so it's already grass, I believe, so they would just maintain what's there. Yeah. Because the gas company won't let you wouldn't let you plant anything on there that would disrupt the gas line.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's a main transmission line.
Do we have a photograph of that area? An aerial?
Let's see if there's.
Your first slide.
Yeah. Kind of hard to tell with the yellow, but it'll be green like everything else.
And the bank is right to the south, directly to the south, is that right?
Right, so the Chase
Yeah.
Bank is here, and then we've got, I think Bimmer Automotive here.
Some restaurants and such in there, yeah.
And then
A
used to
garage.
be, I think it's a taco place here. And then you've got the train line that comes right here.
Right.
And then there's the little shopping center here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions of staff by the commission? Okay. Is the applicant here to present the case?
Chairman Haas, Commissioners Maxwell Fisher with Zone Dev, 2502 Grandview Drive, Richardson, Texas 75080. I'm here representing Lake Breeze LLC. We also have Rose Signs available. She's actually a senior living operations expert, consultant that we've hired to help us along the way, and she can answer questions that I possibly can't answer, or maybe add anything if you don't mind, Chair. Are you going to be running the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just say next.
Next. So this particular site, it's challenging from a commercial standpoint. It's mid-block. It doesn't work for a lot of retail uses, or otherwise it would have already been developed. It's also the fact that there's an atmos easement that runs through the site that you've mentioned is about an acre of the site, and so that cuts off a lot of the frontage from Beltline. So it has a lot of challenges. So we're looking to basically. Whoa.
Sorry about that.
Interesting. We're looking to basically change the zoning to better align with the market and also change the future land use map. The good thing about this is I understand you want to protect your single-family neighborhoods. This property is isolated from your single-family neighborhoods, which I think is good for a medium or high-density product like this. So it provides senior housing for your community, but is not imposing on your single-family neighborhoods. Next slide. Quickly, this is all stuff y'all probably know, but with baby boomers getting older and then just people moving to DFW, there's a huge demand for senior living, and you're probably experiencing this in your own personal lives. But one thing to note is that seniors like to downsize eventually. And they like the aspects of socialization, security, and low maintenance of a different type of product than a conventional single-family home. Next slide. So we're proposing a single 4-story building, 120 units on 4.4 acres. It's all 1 and 2 bedroom. A lot of our residents, sometimes there'll only be one person per 2-bedroom resident or per 2-bedroom unit because they might like to use the other bedroom as an office or a craft room or something like that. So very low density. Not only, there was a question about density or intensity earlier. It's not like a multifamily development because there's no students. So there's probably school-age kids or kids in general. So there's probably 60 to 70 less people just from a kid standpoint in a facility like this than compared to a multifamily. And then there's also less couples. So, and that's why you see a parking demand or a parking requirement that's much less than a multifamily, is because it's just not near as dense as you might think it would be. Everyone has to be 55 years old to live there. If you have a spouse that's less than 55, then you can also live there. But generally speaking, 80%, as I'm told, or people are over 55 or older in these facilities with some spouses that are younger. Will be active living. There's a difference, and Rose knows this better than I do, but there's a difference between active living, which is what we're proposing, and independent living. Independent living, you do have food service. It's more self-contained and full service. This is more active living. So there are maybe a few less services in this type of facility because the people that live there are independent. They're not needing a lot of services. So this is kind of the first step in the continuum care spectrum, if you will. We're proposing 2 full-way access points, Beltline and Sanders Loop. Low traffic, less than 400 daily trips. We have about 25 to 30 turns in our peak hour. We are proposing a left-hand turn out in Beltline. I think that's probably the biggest safety measure here. The atmos, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the amenities in a minute. I'm sorry, I'm not just advancing the slides next. Amenities and offerings. We'll have 2 elevators in this facility, 50% covered parking, mailroom, fitness center, clubhouse. A lot of what you see in a multifamily development, but it's catered to seniors because we do have social activities that are catered to seniors, games and crafts. We will have 2 flex sport courts, and then we'll have some ADA accessible units as well. And these give you some ideas of the look and the feel that we're going for. Next slide. Here's our clubhouse area. It's over 7,000 square feet. Our bistro area, which will have pastries at times and coffee every morning, is in the clubhouse lounge area. Next slide. This is just gives you an idea of what we're going for in terms of aesthetic and intent. Next slide. Here's the outside. We plan on having a water feature on the north side patio and provide some ambiance there, and then a fire pit as suggested by staff on the south side, and then we have a dog park on the south end as well. Next slide. So programs and services, we will have concierge services that will Monday through Friday, and then also on some Saturdays and definitely during lease-up. We'll have a personal fitness trainer. The concierge will be there to help with some of the wellness programs that we'll have, social events calendar, and help with some of those things that as you get older is more challenging, or you may just need help connecting with other seniors in the development. Next slide. It's just another list of our amenities. One thing I will note about the Atmos easement, we met with Atmos a few times, and we do have some struggle there with what we can put in the easement. So we can do grass, and we can do some plants and flowers, very low-level plants and flowers, no structures at all, unfortunately. We'd like to. But what we're doing is we've kind of site planned this to put our amenities up against that, so you kind of still get that experience and feel of that large area. It will be grass. We will plan on planting some nice plants in that area as sort of an extension of our amenity, our outdoor amenity. So we're using it as best we can, given our limitations. Oh, sorry, next slide. This is just showing living units. We'll have stainless steel appliances, granite countertops. The rents on these things are, close to $2,000 a month. So, they're higher end. They're not as much as assisted living because you don't have all the assisted living elements, but they're still very expensive, high top of the market from a leasing standpoint. Next slide. Landscape plan, I'd be happy to go back to it if you have any questions. Next slide. We hired JHP, which I think is one of the better architects. I've worked with a few over the last 20 years, and they're exceptional. So we hired JHP to help us with this request. We think they've done a good job of providing well-articulated building that breaks up the massing, a good mix of materials and sort of classic architecture with brick here and cement fiberboard. Next slide. Same, show the elevations. Yeah, we passed around the board. Be happy to answer questions. Next slide. Here's a rendering of the facility. This is an actual rendering of what it will look like. It's 3D. You see it's well articulated. I think it looks pretty good. Like for kind of a sense of place, just based on the fact that the building is sort of L-shaped and going to create a cubby area there in this site. Next slide. The Coppell 3030 plan, it screams senior housing in several areas. Basically seniors who wish to remain in the community but want to downsize. And so this allows people to move out of conventional home who maybe they're maybe they're empty nesters at this point. And so that frees up those conventional homes for young growing families. So we think that this will provide that type of housing. And then it calls for retired people that work less, more housing for those people. And it just encourages higher density housing. Next slide. And then as mentioned by staff, there's a more recent plan, the 2040 plan, and it basically recommends small scale developments that are on the fringe of commercial in retail areas to reinvigorate those areas by providing some senior retiree housing. I can't think of, it sounds like they're describing our case in some respects with that. It's almost like that was written after our request. Next slide. So we would ask you to support this request because of the reasons they're on the board. Basically, minimize traffic for this type of use. No school impact. It's a good residential infill site. Provides much needed housing and aligns with the comp plan, and staff is in support. Be happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. So in Coppell 3030, we might be having houses on the moon, right? You mean 2030?
Oh, did I say 3030 out there?
I'm just messing with you.
It's a long way out, I'll just say.
Yeah. So a couple of general questions, right? No question, this is a difficult site. Have you visited with the neighboring properties to, say, the east to see what they're doing, to see if there's any connectivity with potential amenities, stuff like that?
Well, to the east is in the city of Dallas.
Well, yeah, that developer.
Yeah.
I mean, this site feels like it's on an island next to a very heavily used traffic corridor, next to industrial. You got noise from the train. It just feels very tight and shoehorned in there. And so, okay, if I'm going to put my folks, or heck, if I would even move in there, I'm hoping that there's some nearby amenities that I'm kind of connecting with. So that's the general question.
Yeah.
Have you talked to that developer to see what they've got going on, to see if there's any opportunity for?
Yeah, I think the ownership has talked to that that owner before. It is separated by Sanders Loop. It's also in the city of Dallas. I think by developing this site, it's going to support the retail that's there. So maybe we get some better retail that better serves. And then just looking at the overall, some of your master plans, particularly the transit-oriented development, if that develops even just partially like it's supposed to, there's going to be some amenities for some of our residents to walk to. Not only that, but since this is active adult, most will, or at least some, will drive and, will be more mobile than if it's, someone who can't get around it as well. So those factors, I think, are important. Not only that, we did push our building back off a Beltline quite a bit. It's kind of, it's back, and so we feel like we've insulated our residents as best we could. And then to address that, there are 3 items from staff that I didn't address yet that I will, that they're recommending that I will, either now or in a minute, whenever it's most appropriate. Regarding sound, we would definitely agree to the 55 decibel level. We'll have an enhanced window with an STR rating that's high to reduce the sound level. Sound transmission rating that's a little higher than your typical window where it makes sense.
And so with this facility, who will be operating it? I mean, is there going to be on-site ownership and operating this thing?
Yeah, I mean, the owner, I mean, there'll be an operating group. It may or may not be the same as the owner. That just depends on the ownership and how it's structured. But yeah, there'll be someone operating it. I mean, we've hired a consultant who will be part of that operation as long as, nothing changes. That's the plan. She'll be here to ramp up the program and make sure it runs as we expect it to, which aligns with industry standard.
Okay. Okay. How about, you mentioned the proximity of the retail site to the north. Is there any physical connection between this proposed site and that retail site to avoid having to walk around?
Well, there's been a request by staff to have a fence put up along the northern property line.
That's right. That's the piers of the dart. Okay, we're not crossing that. Never mind.
I mean, we wouldn't be opposed to a gate or something to keep people from circuitous route out to the street or something. We could definitely look at it.
I have a feeling that would be blocked. Probably not going to be a whole lot of people walking under there. That'd probably be fenced off anyway. So okay, never mind. The concierge service, are those folks that live on site?
Yeah, we'll have a staff person on site, and they'll help people that live there with some of the programming, social programming, fitness center, some things that people need help.
They'll live on site?
I don't know that they'll live on site. They'll definitely be on site during business hours. They may not live on site. They may not. Sometimes there may be a security guard that gets, reduced rent, or maybe another staff personnel. That hasn't been determined yet.
Okay. And I have a whole list of amenity questions. I might save that for later. But with regards to the elevators, is there backup power for the elevators?
A generator, typically that's required to have some sort of backup generator to get
so there will
people
be?
out. Yeah, I would expect to meet building and fire code. We do have 2 elevators too, so if it's not required, it's because we have 2. And let's assume one would always work. I guess if the power's out, they wouldn't. So we'd have to have a generator. I don't know how we would get around that and still meet state life and safety codes.
Okay, I think for right now. Are there any questions of the applicant by the commission? Go ahead, Kent.
Sir, I'm sorry, what's your name? I apologize.
It's Maxwell.
Thank you, sir. How would you and your consultants distinguish the differences between active and independent living?
Yeah, Rose could probably speak to that a little bit better about the differences. And there's some blending of that product. It's kind of like in the hotel industry. There's a difference between limited and and all the different types of hotel, select and all these things. So there's some blending there. But typically with an independent, which is we're not proposing, there's usually one meal provided and there's usually more services because it caters to someone who needs the help, who's maybe a little older.
I'm just curious about the distinction is,
Yeah, Rose can probably better answer that.
The-
She lives and breathes it every day. I'm just a zoning guy.
sure, thank you.
Hello, thank you. I think you can hear me. You might not be able to see me. I'm pretty short. Rose Signs, and with the consulting company. My company is Reveal Soul, and I've been working in seniors housing, senior living for, it'll be 24 years next month. So it's my passion, it's my career, it's what I've done forever since I was very young. The distinction is changing and evolving, as so is our population in seniors housing. You know, we have 73 million boomers coming into this potential need or desire for it, so therefore the product is changing, which is why you're seeing more interest in active adult, because that's more of a, in the mindset of maybe you or I, is, hey, I want to have my own place, but I don't want to have to cut the yard every week, and I don't want to have to deal with all the rest of the things that come with owning a house, but I want to have my freedom to travel, to go see my kids, my grandkids, whatever it is that I want to do, and still run my business. Because many of the people living in active adult still have their businesses, whether they do it part-time or they're still consulting with other businesses. That's what I've seen lately. Independent living, and I appreciate that y'all took the time to go and visit a senior living community. I would encourage everybody to do it because it's never what you think it's going to be. They are beautiful, especially these larger ones like the Watermere, which is that product type is actually a continuum of care retirement community, and we call those campuses because you have everything that you need as an older adult to age in place, and you kind of go through the continuum of services. This is not that. This is the starting point. Let me get my toe in the water. Let me just get a feel for it, kind of get downsize, so to speak, which is the first step. And then as services and needs are increasing, then you would go to an independent or a licensed assisted living community, which those are regulated, of course, by the state and require additional requirements like staffing and so forth. So in active adult, we just recently as an industry defined it. The National Investment Center for Seniors Housing, which is on the slide if you care to reference it later, is where we go nationally with developers and owners and operators, and we come together to collaborate. And we recently tried to define that because it was such a blurry line between independent. And some developers had the leverage point to add assisted living, so therefore they would say, well, yeah, let's put a dining room in there, and you know, we're already going to be serving 3 meals a day for our licensed assisted living. Why not offer that to independent living, and we'll add cottages, which are active adult. So you can see how it gets very confusing. So we've defined that as active adult is 55 plus truly active individuals, but some of the amenities that you would see there you might not see in a multifamily setup because it's going to be more engaging individuals. We want to ensure that they have a whole wellness approach to themselves so that they're taking care of their whole self, including encouraging community and connection, involvement, physical exercises, nutrition classes, and things of that nature. So back in the day when we design or whenever the developer designed the Watermere and you have a theater and they're beautiful and they're great and they're like 75% of the time empty. Yeah. So instead what we're learning is that our new senior that's coming into the industry still wants to teach, and so they're professors and they're educating, and so they're doing Zoom now classes for, like I'm in Austin, so UT Austin, for them through their own meetings in these multi-flex rooms. So in this development, my advice in dealing with the architect who also designs senior housing, and I've worked with them before with another client, and they specifically understand that we need rooms and space that are more flexible to convert to whatever it is that our population is going to desire, which will drastically change, I promise you, because we have more of a boomer population coming in, and their mindsets are much different than the previous generation, which is a little bit more conservative, not our boomer population. They're much more interested in continuing lifelong learning, fitness, wellness, and whole self. I hope I gave you a long answer of that, but I hope I provided some support and education.
Thank you for that. Okay. Other questions of the applicant?
Oh, sorry?
No, I was asking if there's any other questions of the applicant by the commission? Okay.
One other item that I think Rose could address, Chairman, is why, so we agree with the staff conditions. The one we don't is having individual common rooms on every floor. And Rose can address why we wouldn't want to do that in this case, if you don't mind.
Sure. It's my experience over all these years, and I've had multiple communities that I've been a part of that are, large, 200 unit buildings, and even some very small ones. When you have multiple stories, the residents will gravitate to the elevators, and they'll use the elevators and head down, but they typically do not congregate in spaces unless we intentionally schedule a program in those spaces. So it tends to be a wasted space in a lot of cases. So what I preferred on the design is that when we do it all in the common area, when you first come into the environment, into the building, the design itself is very modern and feeling, and you just have a lot more life happening in that area. And that's what's attracting the people to come out of their rooms and not stay isolated and come and join and participate in the engaging programs.
So with regards to the amenities, wouldn't they be more centrally located than as opposed to kind of on one end? It seems like if you're on the north end of the site, you're walking a long way to get to.
I will agree with you, it's an awkward site, which is why we had to make it work in that sense, but you do have two elevators that are going to get them to whatever the main section is at the entrance of it. And when they come in, if I remember correctly on the way that the flow of it is, whether they're driving or walking their dog, all the amenities we have encourage them to congregate together in those common spaces and come together there. So even if they're more of what we call in the industry kind of people watchers, not necessarily one wanting to engage with everybody, but they do have a small pet or they enjoy doing their fitness walk every morning, they're going to walk down through there and they're going to come around, and so it will bring more community to it.
Chairman?
Yes.
I'm intrigued by your concept here of active versus independent, so forgive me for continuing to come back for that. If you're so active, why would you want to live in a small unit? So I get what you're saying, but I'm just curious about what you feel the market demand would be for something like this. I mean, can you point to an active community that actually replicates something like this?
Sure. I mean, I'm in the Austin market, and there's communities out there that have developed and more recently and are attractive to it. The main thing that we're finding in most developers of land that are interested in seniors housing are interested in this is because we're seeing a trend of more older adults that are single. They're not necessarily still married, or in couples there's more divorcees, or maybe their spouse has passed on. We're seeing that trend a little bit more common. And so that isolation in the home is not something that people really want. And there's been recent studies that have come out that show a significant deterioration from isolation in the home. And so now people are starting to realize that. And again, this population that's coming into this market is much more health conscious and more aware of their own being, and they want more socialization. So in combination of not wanting to maintain a home, they'll come into an apartment living situation. And as I mentioned before too, what I've also seen, especially in some newer developments, is they even want an office space built within their apartments. So they'll take a 2-bedroom apartment so that they can make one an office. And I'm guilty, I have that in my home now that I work from home, but and I probably would want something like that myself if I were to move into one.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Ed.
Is that a typical mix you see between 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms in this kind of setup?
Yes, we wouldn't see 3 bedrooms because we don't have large families typically in an active adults, usually 1, maybe 2 people.
But in terms of the 1 bedroom versus the percentage of 1 bedroom versus 2 bedroom?
Yes, actually, we just recently, a study came out in the industry news that I follow, which is American Seniors Housing Association and a few others. And that study actually interviewed several people in this proper age group and what amenities they would like and what type of unit types they would like. And so when I was in consultation with the architect and the owner, we discussed that survey result, and this was the product types that they prefer.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm back on the elevators again. Are any of those elevators freight elevators?
No, we wouldn't have freight to go up and down other than you would
For
just
people
have for
moving
furniture.
stuff in and out? I went through that whip with my daughter, and it was a beating because the elevator, the freight elevator was out,
Yeah.
and the regular elevator was the only one working, and that did not work well.
Okay, I
Did
may
not
have
work well.
misunderstood your question
Is there a
exactly,
freight,
but
will there be freight elevators?
I would need the architect to
We'll have
answer
two.
that exactly.
I'm not
but-
an architect, but
Right.
I'll give
Well,
we'll have two elevators. There won't be a
Freight
separate
elevators, the
freight
bigger,
yeah,
the
no, I
big-
know what I know what you're referring to. We'll have two regular elevators. One could be used for that.
Are they large enough to accommodate gurneys?
Yes. Yeah, we won't be able to put it in unless we can fit a gurney in there, which I think is around 72 or 8 inches, something like that. Yeah.
And from this architecture, they understand that that's typical. What I see is at least one will have that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to confess that I'm intrigued by this active
Yeah.
differentiation versus more of the independent.
Mhm.
But I toured the Watermere
Mhm.
facility in Flower Mound, and that was very, very nice.
Mhm.
Very nice. Hallways were HVAC. I mean, will that be here, HVAC controlled?
Yeah, we'll have
The
temperature
various
control.
amenities they had
Yep.
there. It just, I'm still not past where it's located.
Yeah.
The location is not optimal in my mind, but that's my personal opinion. Okay. Any other questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with the chairman. It just feels like we shoehorned 120 apartment units into a really awkward site. And it feels more like an apartment project than it does a senior housing project for that reason. I don't know how deep the market is for active adults. I have quite a bit of experience in building for independent living. And so I was just curious about your distinction and how deep you thought that market was, because this just feels like an apartment project to me.
Well, I think what helps is the Atmos easement. We have an acre of land that will not be built, so it will create some of the space that you're looking for. I don't think it's quite as crammed as maybe it looks on paper, once it's on the ground. And if we don't, approve something like this in a site like this, I don't know. I mean, where would you approve one if with all the single family around? The comp plan calls for approving these type of facilities that are sort of away from your single family and sort of to re-energize commercial areas. So I guess is it the most ideal site ever? If I could just draw it on paper, the best site ever? No, I mean, we don't have large, there's not a lot of like floodplain areas and open space. It is a residential infill site. And I hope the commission sees that there is some challenges with any residential infill site, but there's also a need for housing, and the commercial just doesn't work on this property. So we'd appreciate those considerations.
You mentioned the 1 acre of open space. Where is that?
The Atmos gas easement will be
Yeah, but you're not going to be under the easement messing around under there.
It's going to be open. It will be just grass,
Yeah,
so it
it's
would be like
open,
a
but-
large field.
okay, I got you.
And we plan on putting plants, and we can still plant plants and things in that area and create. We wanted to use it. We reached out to Atmos. We wanted to use the entire open space and actually plan tons of amenities there, but they don't allow that, as you probably know. Dealing with Encore, Atmos, they're really difficult, and they seem to get more difficult every year.
All right. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay. Thank you
Thanks.
much. I see a couple of folks that have signed up to speak. Rose Maxwell, you already have spoken. VJ Bourne? And Shimish Allah? No?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Vijay Bora. I'm the owner. I'm at 826 Mango Court, Coppell. So this site is well connected to the neighboring Cypress Water. There will be a walking trail by DART. Once the DART is completed, so they'll have a long walking trail, and it's well connected. It is walking distance to the Cypress Water walking trails, and you can walk to the sound, and you can also walk to the old Town Coppell. It is walking distance to Old Town Coppell Center, and the atmosphere
Which
is
one? Old Town, where?
Coppell, Old Town. Yeah.
Old Town Coppell? You're not walking the Old Town Coppell from here.
It's only a 2-3 minutes walk. It's not far. This is a Beltline and Beltline.
Okay.
This is less than a mile and a half. Means it after the Pinkerton Elementary School is yeah. I live on the same street, so I know it's not too far. Means people walk all the way from Bethel Street. Yeah, and at most easement we can basically do all green. We can do we can landscape all that at an easement. We have like 1 acre of land, and we also have some more land on the other side of the easement. I think, can you put up that exhibit?
The bank? Is it the bank?
Yeah, in this corner, the southeast corner. Yeah, that also we can amenitize that area too, because that is out of the easement. So it is a large area. It is and it is well connected to the bank also would like to have 100 seniors who can put more money into the bank, and my neighbor Soto, who is probably in his 70s, he's a single man and he's a long-term resident, and we chatted this morning too. He would like to sometimes people would like to downsize from a big home into a small home. Means again, active living is like 55. It's not 55. People 70s are also still living means actively. So this is geared towards people who are still active and who can take care of their business, and they still want to sense of security. And if there will be other things, and then after this they can probably go with life sub thing, and then go to dementia, and all the different cares are there. But this is the initial phases. So the first probably 5 to 10 years people will stay here, whether it will be 60 to 70 or 70 to 75 or 70 to 80. And so as long as people can walk and do their own things, this is like that. And we are not, again, this is the upscale community. We are not going to do anything cheap here. So because the Coppell is there. And I really thank you for taking your time into looking into this. And if you have any questions, I can answer.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before you step down, I do have a quick question for you. So have you developed other projects similar to this? And if so, where?
Yeah, I represent DFW land. We have around 4,000 acres of land in the whole Metroplex. We started small, probably last 10 years. I've known Matt probably 9 years. So we are developing 1,000 acres in Prosper. We are developing a large master plan community, 400 acres master plan community in Salina, which is a mud district, and which has 1,000 homes. We are developing 350 acres on Parvin Road, and we are doing 200 acres next to Universal Studio. We are developing 200 acres, and on PGA Parkway, we are developing 50 acres of, in that 25 acres of commercial, and 1,100 multifamily units. And we have 42 acres of commercial in Frisco at Hillcrest and 121. So we do have a lot of projects, but I have done a project in Coppell, which is not a big project. We did 7 single-family homes, and right now most of the homes are built in Mango Court, Coppell, and those are like $1 million homes today. So you can look, you can come and see. It's on a private drive called Mango Court.
Hopefully one of those isn't that STR earlier.
No.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
And those are 55 plus sites. All these that you mentioned, except for the single family ones. Those others are similar to this type. Product?
No. This is not the same product.
Okay.
This is
What was your question, Sue? Similar to this type facility.
Right, similar to this type facility.
No. See, I am an investor. I'm a property owner. So it's not like every property doesn't need to be a single family. I'm not like a civil engineer. I'm an electronics engineer. I'm not a civil engineer. So it's like every product. This product we can't put townhomes, or this site is a very tough site. Means like if you study this intersection, commercial is not going to be feasible. I know this site. I own this site probably for 7-8 years. And before the comp plan changed, I was supposed to accumulate all the sites between Denton Tap and Beltline and buy a whole thing, including the bank, demolish all the buildings and build it. When Gary Sieb was here, means I worked with Gary Sieb to develop this whole site into a bigger project. But all of a sudden things changed. Whatever happened, happened, and we are here. Man, this is a very, very immense. Again, the retail will not fly at this site. Means we had to do something creative. And I think if you look at the demographics of Coppell, a lot of people in the next 5 years, 10 years, that is where they're going to head. Like they don't have any options. Either they have to leave out of the town, go to Flower Mound, and stay in that facility, or probably stay another 5 more years in Coppell. While then they can go to. There is a good place on 35. What is Robson Ranch? Robson Ranch. Those are different large 1,000-acre master plan communities for active adults. There are different phases again. This is geared towards Coppell and Coppell residents retiring. I'm 50 this year, and like last week was my 50th birthday, so I'll be eligible only after 5 years to stay in this one. But again, what I'm saying is, when you say 55, I think Rose, and based on our conversations, most of the average age is like 70 people is what the 70 people, singles, like they want some company or something like that. That is the demographics mostly they'll say. Means at the end of the day, means we are going to build a good product. Means again, the product will be managed by someone who has done it, experienced it, and it will be all the programs will be designed by them. So by looking at other places.
Okay, thank you very much. Did he answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I will follow up with Matt. Was there any kind of master planning when Gary was?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We were looking at mixed use back when that was part of our comp plan, but that was changed. So.
Okay. Any discussion by the commission? Oh, I'm sorry. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Sorry. Yeah, come on down.
My name is Chris Collins. I live at 217 Glenwood. Most of us have gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, but a little bit of history. I've been in the Coppell area for 25 years, so today I'm going to speak as a resident. I'm going to speak also from the aspect of being the son of an 87 and 88-year-old that I inherited. I now have a 3 and 4-year-old that I take care of who have lived at Watermere, being my mom and dad. Sorry, you're confused. So I've started.
Were they here earlier? Was that
No,
them?
no.
Oh, okay.
No, they're in bed. They better be. So, and the other experience I have here in the area is 25 years as a realtor and mortgage loan officer helping people buy and sell property. In the course of my development and real estate and living here, I wish I could have had a facility like this close to put my parents in when they needed to move to this type of independent, active living. Mom was cooking 3 meals a day. We were 14 miles away. So being a realtor, listening to people, seniors who are needing to sell their house because they're getting priced out or their maintenance, we're all familiar with this. This product that these guys are bringing to the table, if built like they've described, similar to the Watermere, we have a high need for that here in Coppell. Not the assisted living, we have that over on the Beltline side. I looked at that facility. Sorry, I wouldn't have put my parents there. Something that is newer, up to date, that's built with the amenities that parents like mine were looking for when they were still in the active phase. It's been a need that I've heard rhetorically over the last 8 to 10 years. Then I had to walk through it when I took over taking care of my own parents. Speaking to it from the real estate and the location side, we all know what I went through with this project that we just amended today when it got into density, when it got into location. We just only have so much land left in Coppell to work with. And so this site I've looked at as a realtor with other potential buyers and could never come up with a solution to use that piece of land. To see this here tonight going in, is it ideal, like was mentioned? No, but where is there an ideal property this size in Coppell that's affordable to build something like this? I just want to say hats off to you guys for stepping up to put a project like this together. These are hard times to get into these types of developments. I think this is a product that would actually really thrive well here in Coppell and really serve a need that we haven't really been able to figure out how or where to put. So that's my comments.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Last Chance Cafe over here. No? You sure? Came all the way over here, so why not?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shirish Ala, and I reside at 615 Pacific Court, Coppell, Texas. So I own a land parcel on the Beltline. So it's 900 South Beltline. So this is next to Vijay's property. So I got this notice, and I plan to attend this meeting today. So actually, whatever Vijay and the plan makes sense because that area is really deprived of any retail activity there. So building all this a living space might add some retail market into that area. So that's what I want to say. Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Seeing nobody else. Blue? No? Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion amongst the commission? Is there a motion by the commission? All right, I'll do it. I'm going to motion to deny. I just don't feel that it just doesn't feel right to me. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I appreciate the effort and the intensity, the passion for it, but I'm just not feeling it. So I'm going to make a motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Chairman.
We have a second by Commissioner Haffeman. So Ms. McGee, would you call the roll, please?
Please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Nye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Aye.
Commissioner Maurer.
Oh, wait. I motion to deny.
So affirmative
So-
motion.
Yeah, oh,
Agree with Mr. Haas's motion, you have to say yes.
yes. Sorry. Yes,
If you disagree with his motion,
I disagreed with a nigh.
Are you in favor of it or not in favor of it? Let's do that. That's easy.
She said aye. You said aye.
I motion to deny. And there's a second here.
Second.
Okay. So,
I'm in disagreement with your motion.
gotcha. Okay,
Same thing.
okay. Then I'm going to say aye.
Okay. Sorry, give me a second, I'm sorry. Commissioner Mauer. Commissioner Mauer, sorry.
That's you.
Nay.
And Commissioner Hafman.
Aye.
So we have 4 in,
Don't have an affirmative motion to approve, which is now what you're going to have to do. Your motion in favor.
Okay, so I need a motion. I need another motion.
Yes. Motion to approve is what would be in order.
Is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve PD 313 multifamily 2, Lake Breeze, senior living, Coppell, zoning change request to PD 313 multifamily 2, subject to staff conditions.
We have a motion by Commissioner Marr. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Blankenship. Cammie, would you call the roll, please?
please respond by saying aye or nay as I call your name. Commissioner Blankenship.
Aye.
Vice Chair Portman.
Aye.
Chairman Haas.
Nay.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hafman.
Nay.
So 4 in favor, I'm sorry, 3 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, item 10 on the agenda is the review of the city council items from the latest hearing. We reviewed those in pre-session. And so with that, I'll move to adjournment. Is there any discussion by the commission? Okay, with that, I will move to adjourn the meeting. The time is 9:30.